Today we're going to talk about this paint color by PPG, Pittsburgh Paint Company. That's not what it stands for, by the way. It's a paint company that we don't talk about too much on this channel, not for any particular reason, but we had a request by one of our viewers to go through it, talk about some details regarding it, and ultimately give you a whole color palette that you can use on your next project. So not only are you going to be a master of this paint color, but also some trim colors and some wall color pairings that go really well with it. I'm James, the color guy. This is Color Quickie. Let's quickly start talking about this paint color. So Nightwatch is a darker paint color, and the name kind of gives that away, but it doesn't really tell you what kind of color it is. What is the hue? What is the actual color, the undertones behind it? And visually speaking, if you can see here, it is green at its core, but it also has a little bit of a cool blue undertone to it. Not to the point where it feels overly teal, but it is sort of that jewel tone green that is pretty desirable. So desirable that it was the 2019 color of the year by PPG, so that gives you an idea of how likable it is as a color. I also find it interesting because green has been pretty popular for the last few years, but now emerges a new contender as color of the year, which is more blue leaning colors. So this sort of combines the two in a really nice little dark package. How dark? Well, we can tell exactly how dark it is by looking at the LRV, and you can look on the PPG website and see that this color has a 6 light reflectance value. And that just tells us that it reflects 6% of the light that hits it, which is not a lot. It's going to be dark. Just to give you some context, some black paint colors have a 3 LRV, so not too far off. Which is why Nightwatch to me is definitely more of an accent color, or one of those moody colors to use in very specific parts of your home where you want something that has a lot of body to it, a lot of saturation, and not a lot of brightness, because you're not getting that here. Spaces like bathrooms would be great, maybe a bedroom, an office if you want something really, really moody. Or if you have a room that does get a lot of lighting, a lot of natural light through windows, maybe you have a ton of built-in cabinetry that is lighter and your visible wall space is not too much, so you're not actually going to see a ton of this dark green color. It's just kind of outlining different pieces of furniture. That could also be a great option as well. But for the most part, this is not the first color I would recommend for your hallway or even the main body of your home on the outside. But for those specific purposes, I think it can be a really awesome choice. Okay, so we got that color covered. What about some trim color options to go on your baseboards and your frames and all that? The first option I would recommend to most of you is Pegasus. And this is an off-white that has an 80 LRV, so it's not insanely bright, but I think it's clean and it's a bit grayed out too, so it feels a bit softer than one of your just stark, sterile, crisp whites that exists. So great choice to pair with Nightwatch because it's obviously going to pop against that being such a dark color. But what if you wanted another dark color for your trim, maybe on your doors or perhaps some furniture that you're painting? You want something really moody but different from Nightwatch. Well, that's where Napoleon comes in. And this color is in the purple family, but it's more of a slate gray purple, like a Concord grape, sort of charcoal kind of vibe. Very much a shaded purple. I think PPG describes it as having a plum undertone. So it's subtle, more subtle than you think, and also an equally as dark low LRV, so very dark color as well. It's going to give you a contrast in undertones rather than depth because they're both very, very dark colors. Let's get into some wall color pairings, and I wanted to keep things a bit more light, airy, and warm because Nightwatch is darker and more cool leaning, so I wanted to balance things out a bit. And the first color I'm going to recommend is horseradish. So this is a very bright off-white as well. Compared to Pegasus, I would say horseradish has more of a warmth, more of a yellow undertone, so it has this aura about it. It will really brighten up any space you use it in. Just be mindful with yellow undertone, off-whites especially. If you do introduce it with blue lighting through north-facing rooms, really bright fluorescent style lighting, you might see a bit of a bluification of the color, which could lead to a slight green undertone, which maybe you're not looking for, but considering Nightwatch is already green, it may work just fine. Keep in mind, horseradish is technically a tiny bit lighter than Pegasus, that trim color we talked about. But like I said, Pegasus is a little more of a clean gray white. Horseradish has that yellow undertone too. So there will be a very subtle difference between the two. If you wanted a little more of a difference in a wall color, but maybe something that was still pretty neutral, gray beige is one of my #1 recommendations when it comes to neutral, light mid-tone colors. It has a 64 LRV, and it's exactly what you would think. It is a combination of gray and beige, beige, two of the more popular neutral types you can get, maybe next to white. And what's great about that is it's a very transitional color. So if you use it in a space that has a lot more of those warmer organic materials like woods and all that, the beige aspect will work just fine. Or if you have a space that caters to the cooler tones like your cooler grays, your blues, your metallics, it works in that respect as well. So very versatile color. That 64 LRV puts it in light mid-tone range, which means it has enough depth to be noticed. It's not going to look like a white, but it also reflects enough light back into the space where it's not going to feel too bogged down and heavy. Now this third color is a little bit of a stretch. It may not be to everyone's tastes, but I wanted to introduce it to you. I know golds and yellows, they are a bit of a challenge to implement sometimes, especially in larger areas, but I wanted to give Bronze Statue a try with this palette. Yes, it does have that bronze gold aspect, almost an ochre feeling undertone, which can translate to being a bit greeny as well in certain conditions, but I think it works great with these other colors. It does have that common denominator with Nightwatch by sharing that green, although in pretty different ways. And then of course, gray beige has that sort of warm neutral aspect to it. And Bronze Statue is a very distant cousin of warm neutral because you can kind of see it as a variation of tan, but it just again has that kind of greeny gold aspect too that sort of puts it in this unique category. Here's the palette all together. Please let me know what you think and be honest with me. I'm okay, I can take it. We got more color quickies right over here if you want different palettes because I got a lot of them on this channel.